This is a remix. I repeat, this is a remix.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarret Patton.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Licensed to Live, the podcast. We are having a blast. Now, for this episode, I wanted to remix a series I did earlier in this year, really surrounding COVID and the pandemic. And we talked about several things that are very important. And I realized that with some of you, when these episodes originally aired, COVID wasn't even in your town. And now that it is spreading in the first wave in some places, in the second wave in other places, I want to make sure you have these episodes handy as a COVID resource for you to figure your way out of many of the perils and pitfalls that come within. So we will get started right after a word from our sponsor. Emmett Hayes III Coffee Company, EH3, specializes in selecting 100% Arabica coffee beans from distinct coffee growing regions across the globe. EH3 Coffee Company offers an exclusive brand of organic coffee beans and blends. All coffee products are craft roasted to perfection, which yields consistency and quality, taste, and optimal flavor. EH3's quest is to create an evolutionary coffee experience for every single customer, every single time. Get your coffee today at emmetscoffee.com. That's EMMITTSCOFFEE.com. So this first episode is about distractions. We get distracted with all types of things, whether it was the pandemic or the economy crashing or even the presidential election. I mean, there are distractions always around us. And in this episode, we talk about distractions and how they can detract us from what's really important in life. Take a listen. Well, the topic for this episode came up during the coronavirus outbreak. As you recall, there are daily updates for the virus, where it spreads, where it came from, where is it going, how many people are infected, how many people died. Then the cycle repeats itself all over again. With this coronavirus, it is easy to get distracted by the constant discussion of this topic or any topic that seems to be highly talked about. It starts to play on your psyche. Is my nose running? Am I getting sick? Do I have coronavirus? Does my neighbor? You may become overwhelmed. Now that many people have it across the country, you may start to wonder where it will go next by analyzing the flight patterns in and out of Seattle, for instance. Next thing you know, you start looking up on the internet how many virions are in COVID-19. Then the next thing you know, 3 hours of your life has been wasted. Well, yeah, coronavirus is important. We do have to take swift and decisive action. We must come up with a game plan, yes. But all the worry and anxiety that is occurring can be a side effect of our distractions. Now, I just use coronavirus as the example here. You can insert politics or sports or the market woes instead of coronavirus, and it all works. There are plenty of things to keep you being distracted. Now, of course, I have been distracted from putting out these podcast episodes I have saved up, and some of it is to my own doing. Some of it is due to my travel schedule. Some of it is to the filming of the new Us versus the Plant movie that I'm in. But yeah, they're distractions and they need to be handled appropriately. And otherwise you don't hit your goals. And that's what I'm talking about here. So what's the big deal? Don't we need distractions from life? Well, yeah, there are times that you could use a distraction. Vacation is a great distraction. However, you should acknowledge the need for a distraction and then take it. Use it to improve your health and wellness. So distractions do have a positive connotation that we don't always apply to it. However, most distractions tend to take your attention away from something important. Your kids, maybe the highway, perhaps your goals and objectives. Yeah, your goals and objectives. That's it. Those things that you write down around the new year, and I might ask you about on LinkedIn, and you might put a couple down and we talk about it. But then come July, we haven't looked at that paper since January. And whoa, what has happened to this year? It's flying by. Maybe distractions only affect me, and I'm just talking to myself here. But if you become distracted, here's something that you can do. Acknowledge that something is distracting. Yes, acknowledge that something is distracting. This will allow your mind to see that thing, whatever it is, that your brain has been desperately trying to ignore. Once you recognize a presence, then you can forget it, or you have to address it, or you can just put it away for another time. You might have to stand up, take a deep breath, take a walk, maybe a run, maybe some of your other tried and true reframing tactics, but take a look at your daily or weekly planner. And if you don't keep a daily or weekly planner, you can get your official License to Live daily focused task planner by simply texting Dr. Jarret to 44222. That's DOCTORJARRET to 44222. You need that visual to get you on task, and that will keep you up to date with what you're supposed to be doing day after day, just in case you get distracted. So it's a great exercise to do every week as you're laying out your week, figuring out where you have to go, how many people you have to save, what you're rushing off to next. However, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging a distraction. Simply don't let it constantly distract you. You are in control here. Of course, distractions come in different forms. We're talking about things like social media, coronaviruses, market crashes, TV, etc. right now, but there are other things that can take your attention away. What about things that dominate your attention span? Have you ever been distracted by your emotions? That can be a pretty tough situation, because when you're distracted by your emotions, whether you're happy or sad, you're kind of tuned into those and not to what's going on around you. Let's take anger for an example. Anger is an emotion we have all experienced over our lifetimes. However, anger, even by itself, can be a distraction. Whatever you are steaming mad about has taken an enormous amount of energy and focus. In fact, you may not be able to see clearly when enraged. You may make poor decision-making on top of being distracted. It's essential to separate the emotion from the actual challenge or problem, if you will. If forgiveness is required, you may have to forgive someone or something and move on. Take a moment to acknowledge your feelings, then analyze the problem. You may even want to take another moment to find the positive in the situation that you were mad about. There's likely something positive that you have overlooked due to that anger and that raw emotion. Then you focus on what brings you joy or what brings you happiness. You can choose to be mad or choose to be happy. It is a conscious choice. If you have difficulty in seeing the positive, there is some help. Have you tried to use affirmations to change your mind? Affirmations get a bad rap when people don't use them correctly. They say, oh, it's just a positive statement. It's just something we say over and over again. And I've said something happy one time, and people think that saying affirmations once, things will magically change. It's like hocus pocus or abracadabra or something where you're waving that magic wand. But changing your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and parts of your life take time, just as it took time to form all of these things. If something is deeply ingrained, it may take longer and take more effort to achieve your goal. Positive affirmations can support and enhance your progress from the first day by helping you develop a positive outlook, broaden your opportunities, counteract negative statements, focus on and achieve healthy goals, increase your confidence, see yourself as a beautiful person, change unhealthy behaviors, take control of your life, motivate yourself to take action, and so much more. Affirmations actually helped me through very difficult times in my life when I thought that I had lost everything that had mattered to me. I have a firm belief that they can work because I've used them. Many of you who've been following me on social media, and you can follow me virtually anywhere at Dr. Jarret. I'm not on TikTok yet, but maybe someday. But you spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. And if you have been following me there, you've seen that I've been posting some select affirmations recently. And the reason I've been doing this is to get people to think positive, even in these uncertain times, even when it is difficult, even if they just read my affirmation once and maybe say it to yourself again in the mirror, maybe say it a few times throughout the day or when things aren't going well for you. But using these affirmations can help change your life. In fact, my first Licensed to Live book was really about how to help redefine your career after going through a terrible challenge like I did. And if you want more details on that, you got to go back to some of my early episodes of this podcast. I won't go into it here, but I have just finished writing the next Licensed to Live book. It's entitled Licensed to Live: Daily Affirmations to Rebuild Your Life. It will eventually be at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but kind of right now, if you're listening to this episode right when I'm getting it set up in March of 2020, it's not quite available yet, but we do have the pre-sales going on. And it is filled with 90 affirmations, including a resource to show you how to use your affirmations. So if you want to get started on that positive thought pattern, go ahead, get a try. You can get your autographed copy by me and mailed out as soon as they're available. Just go to licensedtolivesale.com and I'll put that all in the show notes. And if you want a special pre-sale discount, enter free ship 19 to get that discount. So just click the link in the show notes. So of course you're asking, do I get distracted? Yes, of course. I think we all do. As much as I try to be focused, as much as I try to keep other people focused in their life and their career and their goals and achievements, and all the clients that I've been helping over the years in my License to Live coaching program, yes, we all have distractions. In fact, sometimes I get distracted by work that I thought was outside of my scope. And, I told you about the Us versus the Plant film, which is a documentary about medical marijuana. But I felt distracted by working with film producers, videographers, makeup artists, and the like. I mean, I'm a physician. I'm a doctor. I'm used to being in hospitals, clinics, and doing stuff like that, not on film sets, not in audio booths. Well, except when I'm doing this podcast. But for the most part, this was something new. But I realized that uncomfortable feeling was not really bad. It was about me growing and doing something new, which I'm very thankful of. And we'll have some upcoming episodes with the film producer so you can hear more about the film. But distractions are part of life, and we all must deal with them. So take time to acknowledge your distractions and use whatever tips and tools you know to keep yourself on track, including having those daily affirmations. And within 90 days, you can really do some work on your mind, your view on life, and you can start by checking out License to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life. Now, I hope that was helpful for the most part with everybody, because there are distractions in our lives every day and we must get through them. Now, this next episode is really aimed at the pandemic and what can you literally do? Because many of us don't have clinical positions. We're executives, we're leaders. We are not seeing patients every day. And I gave some suggestions for even those people who want a little help in finding what they can do to help in this pandemic. And I give some true life stories of my own. Take a listen. Where do we begin with this mess that we are in? Yet here's another episode recorded during the COVID-19 pandemic. There are a few things we need to talk about. I've been advising lots of people and some organizations on the developments which are hard to keep up with. We have a paucity of data and data overload at the same time. What a paradox. It seems mutually exclusive, but here we are. First things first. Please observe social distancing, hand washing, and limit unnecessary travel, along with whatever else the experts are recommending. I know that I don't have to tell you fire starters about this because many of you, well, you're living this right now and dictating the policies. However, for those that may not be as connected, I feel the urge to make this one public service announcement. Additionally, let's talk about the front lines. This is where many of you may be at this time. The reports from the front lines are difficult to stomach. With limited testing, reports of personal protective equipment not being in enough supply, this turns to be a personal decision with potentially grave consequences. For those on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, thank you. Thank you from me. Thank you from my family. Thank you for many of us. You're performing a courageous job, and without you, we would be in much worse shape. Please stay safe. Many of you who know me and my story from Licensed to Live, a primer to rebuilding your life after your career is shattered, I was very reluctant to go back into clinical medicine. I finally made that leap when I started my small specialties concierge cannabis practice in 2019. However, my job on the front line today is mainly pitching in to help by way of telehealth, working with a couple of national companies. That is how I decided to pitch in this crisis. But those of you on the front lines, in the hospitals, the clinics, the urgent care centers, emergency rooms, testing centers, and other direct patient care portals, you guys are really doing it. Hats off and congratulations to many of you who are doing what it takes and fulfilling our oath. You are directly in harm's way. Please be safe. Please protect yourself the best you can. And stand up if your working conditions are no longer safe. When I think back to what we're dealing with now, the closest thing I can remember in my professional career is 9/11. I was working in the Bellevue Pediatric Emergency Service in New York City overnight on September 10th, 2001. Early in the morning of 9/11, I signed out and left my shift to ride the F train back to Brooklyn, pretty sleepy-eyed as usual. I would finish off my coffee on the ride home. Man, I wish they had EH3 back then. But once back at my apartment, I would take a shower and get some sleep to prepare for another shift. As I was just about to settle into bed to catch some rest, something caught my attention on television. It looked like a large skyscraper was on fire in the upper floors. Sleepily, I told myself that this would be a perfect movie to fall asleep on. Then I noticed the channel. It was CNN, and the building on fire was one of the World Trade Centers. Immediately, the sleepiness left my body as I was shocked at this development. As the reporters were explaining how the tower caught fire after a plane crashed into it, another plane crashed into the other tower. My life felt like it was changing by the second. This couldn't be bad luck. Are we at war? Is New York City under siege? Meanwhile, the subways are shutting down. The city is confused. What is going on? I then rushed up several flights of stairs to see if I could get on the rooftop and see what was going on. In disbelief, I could see both towers burning at the end of the Manhattan skyline. I could go on to this scene, but it still gives me chills, and I want to get back to the point here. Well, immediately I could not get back to the hospital to help because so many people were fleeing Manhattan on foot as the subways immediately stopped service. It was looking like I would not have any other way to get back to Bellevue other than walking. Now, at this point in the story, you may be thinking that I have some heroic story about me walking through Brooklyn, across the Brooklyn Bridge, carrying somebody on my back all the way uptown to Bellevue to help. Well, no, I don't have a story that dramatic because the word at the hospital was that there were enough hands on deck and for me to stay put. It could be too dangerous for me to travel from Brooklyn. Later in the day, some subway service resumed, but they cordoned off much of downtown Manhattan around the trade centers and started shipping people out for medical attention to Bellevue. Bellevue is one of the city's most historic and famed hospitals. It was always tagged to respond in a disaster. Well, when I arrived that night, the emergency room was eerily quiet, and there was barely a patient to be seen. What normally would have been a bustling place with kids, ranging from barely sick to those in critical condition, it was deserted, aside from the myriad of nursing staff and physicians waiting to tend to the injured. I looked around at the vast emptiness. There was only one lone fireman who suffered a minor eye injury while fighting the blaze. People knew to stay away from Bellevue. Those cold symptoms could wait, as the whole nation knew that they were shipping lots of people from the World Trade Centers to Bellevue. For days, the ER was mostly empty, except for food donations that were sent from all across the country to help feed the staff who was sure to be overworked and tired. The sad part of this empty ER is that there were very few survivors to treat. I understand the front line. I have been there. I've rushed to situations with reckless abandon to try to help others, even when my own safety could have been in jeopardy. Again, to the front line has some important decisions to make. Please take care of your own safety as you help others. We have doctors who have succumbed to COVID-19 and many that have gotten sick, and likely many more that will suffer a similar fate in just trying to help. What if for some reason you can't be on the front line? Perhaps you are afraid of what it may mean for you or your family or your children or your elderly parents that you take care of. That is a valid reason. Most of us aren't trained for this exact scenario. Make a personal choice and don't be apologetic. There is nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines and being safe in this rapidly changing environment. Keep listening, because I will give you a couple of other suggestions that can help you cope and deal with the situation by being helpful in other ways. Another reason may be that you aren't a clinical doctor anymore, much like I was prior to 2019. Does that mean that you go back and get your lab coat, put those pocket books that you used to carry in there, grab your tools, stethoscope, and run to get expedited credentialing at the nearest hospital? Well, that is an option, but there are other things you can do. Keep listening. Perhaps for some reason you are unlicensed or have some sort of suspension or restriction on your license. Certainly don't start seeing patients or open a pop-up tent under this situation. You may not even be prepared to jump back into the clinical saddle, let alone for something that changes daily. Perhaps you have retired and haven't practiced for years. Yep, there are things that you can do as well. So for any of you that aren't on the front lines and wish you could help, here are a few suggestions. Number one, help disseminate real information with people and help debunk the myths that are circulating. There is lots of misinformation on social media, and you can help by being on social media or helping telephonically to help people understand the facts as we know them today. Perhaps you can write a letter to the editor in your local paper to shed further light on the situation that people are having difficulty. Personally, I have been broadcasting my Facebook live streams from my @Dr. Jarret page. You know you can find me on social media everywhere @Dr. Jarret. Spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. But I've been talking about COVID-19 to my followers there, which are mainly parents who watch my show 2 Cents Tuesday. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Let's do our part to help clean some of it up. Number 2, consider making a donation. There are many different charities and local funds being set up across the nation, knowing that we are in for many changes, unknowing of the lingering effects. Now, realize that this donation doesn't have to be monetary. I mean, even the blood banks are in dire need of donations. So go seek out your local blood bank and donate a pint of blood, if nothing else. Make some sort of donation to the community. Number 3, sign up for a telehealth company. There are many telehealth companies that may want your help. In fact, if you're looking at the link in the bio, you can get a $100 bonus right now just for credentialing with a company. If you tell them that I sent you there, Dr. Jarret Patton. One of the companies I work with is American Well, and they have been having a shortage of physicians able to see their telehealth platform. So they want more. There are lots of people who want an expert opinion, and you can do that safely, remotely, from the comforts of your office or your home or wherever you happen to be while you're social distancing and practicing good hand hygiene. Now, you do need to have an unrestricted license for this one, but there's no time like the present to think about telemedicine, especially with the restrictions on independent state licensure starting to erase. You may actually be able to see people in many more states, even though you're not licensed. This will remain to be seen. Number 4, join a local task force or committees in your professional organizations. There are many local public health organizations trying to keep pace with this changing environment. Often they enjoy the input of another physician. Why not let that physician be you? You may not be an infectious disease specialist. You may not be a scientist, but you can help decipher a lot of what is going on. It doesn't have to be the CDC. Your local officials are handling the local business. People need the advice of a doctor for these things to work well. After all, you are an expert in the medical field. Stay positive. Keeping an upbeat spirit can be of great benefit to others, especially when they are feeling scared. If you have difficulties being positive, perhaps you would like my new book, Licensed to Live, Daily Affirmations to Rebuild Your Life. You will find it on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, or you can get it directly autographed from me at licensed2livesale.com. Links are in the bio and in the show notes. This daily affirmation guide will be sure to transform your thinking into positive territory. So simply practicing positive thinking in your mind, in your thoughts, it can be beneficial to bringing your overall demeanor back up. Number 6, if nothing else, stay at home and practice good social distancing. Your example will certainly be followed by others. If people see one of the town's doctors out there having a party or hanging out in bars and ignoring all of the local recommendations, well, that's what people will likely do. They'll think it's no big deal. But if they don't see you, or when they do see you, they see you are being very responsible, practicing social distancing, good hand hygiene, people will be sure to follow. We must all do our part to limit the spread, and being a good example gets a lot of people to change their mind. Don't feel bad. Don't be apologetic. There are many of us who can't be on the front lines. There's so many other ways that we can help. During emergencies, we want to be useful. In fact, I ought to tell you about the medical emergency that occurred on a flight from Los Angeles recently for me. I mean, for all I know, it could have been my COVID-19 exposure, but it was too new and I was never tested. But man, was I sick for a while. But anyway, we can be useful in many ways, even if we aren't staring COVID-19 directly in the face. I learned many years ago that you can be useful in an emergency without providing any direct medical care. Take some time for developing your plan, and let's all pitch in as we can to help bend the curve in the U.S. So even if you aren't in the direct line of fire, don't feel guilty. There's lots of things that you can do to make the pandemic better. Now, with this next episode, we really talked about when things start to get rough and you realize, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't really what I wanted to do. And we talk about some of the abuses and the ways that docs and other professionals get caught up in these systems. And we give insights behind what may go on and just some broad thinking in terms of what your board may be thinking right now. That board of trustees, that board of directors, they, during times of crisis, like, well, the moments that we are living in right now, there are two main themes that come from the boardroom. And I really want you to understand that, because that may help explain some of the actions and activity that turns out on the front line that doesn't really make any sense. So, hey, check this out. Crisis brings out the best in leadership, and it can bring out the worst in leadership. It is how people stand up to adversity that makes a difference. When you are working on the front line, it makes no difference. Left with a paucity of supplies or left to make homemade supplies to protect yourself, there are a myriad of patients to be taken care of. One thing's for sure, during these stressing times, people will show their true colors. Think back when we began this journey to serve society as physicians. None of us thought that this could be a scenario. Hospitals across this country are bursting at the seams as makeshift hospitals pop up or float into major cities. The virus indiscriminately infects people old and young, healthy and ill, with a relatively high fatality rate if you have any medical condition. When we were sitting in class learning about microbiology, virology, genetics, and a lot of other stuff, there was little to prepare us for the battle that's going on the front line today. My last couple of episodes have been devoted to helping all of us grapple with our current reality. Orders to stay home, stay safe, social distancing, limited travel. On the other hand, orders to continue working despite being ill or not having enough PPE. We talked about distractions like COVID-19 and how you need to acknowledge them and keep moving forward in episode 61. In the last episode, we talked about the national emergency and how I could only compare it to my own personal 9/11 story. I gave several examples in how you can help even if you can't fight on the front line. Today, we are talking about the feelings that many of us have towards our chosen occupation. I have been scanning Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter and all social media at Dr. Jarret. Spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. But I've been scanning Twitter and watching the eyewitness reports of the struggle that many people are having making the decision to jump in the fire or not. This is not what I signed up for. As many of you know, my job as a physician executive was taken from me years ago in an unfortunate event that led to my career being shattered. I wrote about some of it in License to Live, a primer to rebuilding your life after your career is shattered. However, during my time as a president of the medical staff and a board of trustee member of an 8-hospital system, I learned the inside of systems and how they are forced to make tough decisions regarding their employees. There is a cycle of laissez le bon temps rouler, let the good times roll, versus the sky is falling that happens in many boardrooms. In fact, I remember the first board of trustee meeting I attended. Instead of having the board meeting in the boardroom at the main hospital, we were at a satellite hospital in the conference room. Being a new member, I remember sitting down, trying not to draw any attention to myself as there was discussion after discussion with disagreements and no conclusions. And hours went by of all of this happening when about 6:30 in the evening, one of the members said, looked at their watch and said, where are we on the agenda? And we were still on the first point. So I won't get into the specifics, but I thought to myself, this is how hospital systems are run? Well, it turns out that this was an aberration and every meeting was not like this. However, I gained years of experience viewing hospital systems from the top level. However, the cycle of let the good times roll versus the sky is falling continues in many boardrooms today. You can guess where the board sits on that continuum today. Yeah, you're right. The sky is falling. In a fast-paced crisis, decisions must be made quickly, and they may not seem the best thing initially or even in retrospect. We can see something similar play out in Washington right now with the daily updates of things. Things that were fact yesterday may be untrue today. We have to keep on rolling. Right now, the sky is falling, and the C-suite and accompanying board members may not be prepared for this type of germ warfare, if you would. Never would anyone want their most important resource, the staff, to work in unsafe conditions or be without PPE. However, the COVID-19 situation is unprecedented. And the message may come from the C-suite as we must hunker down and take care of patients. As the staff gets sick, there are less people to help in the fight, which necessitates longer hours or perhaps using homemade PPE as supplies have run out. Although individual systems had different levels of emergency preparedness during this emergency, and the government is trying to do what they can do to help the situation, this battle on the front lines of healthcare is real, and you may be stuck right in the middle of it. Many of you have heard the phrase, "It's business, not personal." This is the phrase that many leaders may hang on to because it helps them sleep at night. I was one of them. Although decisions may be made that affect you personally, don't worry. It is not intentional. It's not against you personally. It just affects you or your health or potentially your family. I hope that makes you feel better. At the top of the show, I mentioned that the best and worst in leadership may come out during these times, and I want people to understand the consequences of not following along in that plan, no matter what it may mean to you. Well, in short, job loss. Of course, things are fine now that you're risking your own safety. You're saving lives and doing a great job. You may have gotten some fame from a video you posted that got some national attention. This is great because people want to know these stories. However, proceed with extreme caution. Things may seem all good until the crisis is over, and then you get called to the principal's office to have a discussion about that media appearance. It seemed harmless at the time, but it got the attention of many administrators. The discussion around the table goes something like this. "Hey, Jim, did you see that video that was posted?" "Yeah, Bob, it was on the Today Show. It seems worse than we think on the front line." "Yeah, maybe we should take a walking tour to see what's going on." "I don't know. It is really unsafe down there. Maybe we'll call the unit director and check in instead." One thing is for sure, we can't have our doctor saying things that put us in a bad light. Should we bring them down for a discussion? Nah, they're too busy now, and we need them to fight the battle. Let's wait till the crisis is over, and then we decide what we're going to do. Bad publicity is the last thing that any system wants. In fact, they may jettison anything if it brings bad press, no matter how valuable they may be. Yeah, I know, because I was one of them. When thinking of policy and procedure, several things come to mind. Number one, the hierarchy of media releases. Most of the time, the C-suite wants to control the narrative. They don't like it if someone makes a pitch to the media without them knowing, especially if it's like an expose piece or something that shows something really horrible. People who manage the media relations like to be in charge so they don't get surprises. They don't want individual doctors and nurses controlling the dialogue. Number two, HIPAA reigns supreme. If you're making these posts and any patient is in the picture directly or indirectly, that could be taken as a break in the law and yet another reason to get rid of you. Number three, if within that viral moment you say something incorrect or perceived that way, it could be considered libel and will ultimately put you in a bad light. So we've talked about social media and the power of social media and things that you can do to empower each other with our So Me Docs founder, Dr. Donna Coriel, in a past episode. I'll put the link in the show notes just for reference. But there are some really good things you can do out there, but be very cautious. Let me be clear here. I'm not saying to silence your voices. I'm simply saying proceed with caution, knowing what can happen. Some of you may not care anymore because this is not what you signed up for.
This may be the last straw that makes continuing on in your profession no longer an option. You are left with a decision to make. What will I do now? I have spent my whole life being a physician. This is one of the main topics that's discussed in this show. We talk about all different types of things. What do people do who are physicians who are no longer a traditional physician? So there are many avenues to pursue. Take some time to think about your options and make a calculated exit. Don't get yourself thrown out with the trash. What do you do when you can't do it anymore? Well, the best thing to do is to spend some time thinking about the issue and exploring your options. There may be some deep down passion that you have suppressed for years because you really haven't had the time to think about the issue. I don't want you to have guilt or feel bad about your decision to do something different. We all need balance in life, and why shouldn't you have it? It may not require an all-out quit from medicine, but it may lead to a better balance in a hybrid model. If nothing else, get someone to help you think about it, like a trusted friend, an advisor, a mentor, or a professional. I hear the stories from docs all over the country. Some of my clients are wearily fighting the battle against COVID-19, and others have started businesses outside of healthcare and are looking to assist in other ways. At any rate, as devastating as this pandemic is, it will have lingering effects on our lives for a long time to come. We must prepare ourselves for a post-COVID-19 world. I'm also doing the same. For instance, my media appearances are going remote. The stages that I was booked on have largely been canceled, or perhaps some of them have been turned into virtual stages. Luckily, it won't stop me from launching my upcoming book, Licensed to Live, Daily Affirmations for Rebuilding Your Life. I have the proof copy right next to this microphone stand, and it'll be in the stores very soon. And little did I know that a book of affirmations would be sorely needed in such a depressing and seemingly hopeless environment. What do you do when you can't do it anymore? After spending time thinking about your options, it is time to develop your exit strategy. I gave some ways earlier not to have an abrupt exit strategy by having administrators and executives calling you to the office, stripping you of their badge because of that social media post that went viral that led to your national TV interview. What will you do? Maybe it's simple as just getting yourself into a long vacation. Perhaps you need a less intensive setting. Maybe add a little more teaching. Maybe take something else away. It could be anything. As you are pondering your options, there's one step you should take before you make that decision. Make preparations. Just as you would prepare for that long vacation, you have to prepare by packing, maybe getting the bills off before you leave, finishing your charts, closing out your accounts, lots of other stuff you may be doing. But in this case, you should consider one of my 7 R's for career transition. And this R is for recalibrate. You should recalibrate your finances. Preparing for this journey, you need to do things that will take the financial strain off your back. This could mean saving more and bolstering those savings in retirement accounts. Perhaps it could be holding off on that new car or that kitchen remodel or some other big ticket item. The last thing you want to do for the transition is to take on a huge debt load, even more than you had. I mean, raise your hands or honk your horn or something if you still have student loan debt. You don't want to worry about car payments or the new flooring that you put in that you didn't have to make payments for over a year. Ouch. Ooh, that year is up now. You know, the stuff you thought you couldn't live without. R is for recalibrate. It may be prudent to look at every part of your life and expenses. Take a good look and see what you can cut back on. Do you need cable, Apple TV, Netflix, and Disney Plus? I don't know, but I know that I don't have that much time. I don't need all that. You should go down each one of your expenses and take a good look. Make a budget. Yes, a budget. Believe it or not, some people have never made one. Get yourself ready for this transition. Take this first R and recalibrate. Now, there are plenty more R's to learn about, but we're only going to take one here today. The rest you can read about in the book or, well, you'll just wait for some other episodes. But I want to give you this one R today as you may be pondering what your life is going to look like in a post-COVID-19 world. It's rough out there. Do what you need to get the job done. Eventually, we will make it through. Try not to ruffle the feathers of administrators, but stand up and be a good leader, even though you may not feel the same way about your senior leadership. Perhaps you are feeling like you've had enough of your current job. Perhaps you're looking for something else. Life is really different now and really scary now with so much uncertainty. And life certainly isn't guaranteed. If you feel that it is time for you to do something with your life, you feel like you really want to start living again, you want to be free, make an appointment to talk with me at timewithdrjarret.com.
Yeah, it gets tough out there when you get frustrated or you're thinking, I did all this work for what? It just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Well, yeah, it gets tough these times, but hang in there. There is help. There are people that can help. I can help. There's just lots of things that you can do. So make sure you're checking out and really thinking about your own plan as you're moving forward. Now, this final episode, part of the COVID remix, is really about job loss. And I start off talking about, well, my license to live story and another piece of it when I lost my job. And sometimes something may come over you that you will lose your job suddenly. Well, we just don't have money to pay you anymore. Or you just decide to quit suddenly. I have to do what? I quit. And you just walk out of there. And there are sometimes you don't really get to plan for the transition. So I give a few tips in here if you guys are in this category and may need a little motivation and say, well, you know what? If I move forward, things will turn out okay in the end. So let's check out this final episode.
Jobs will be lost. People will be let loose, while most people never thought that this could be a reality. After all the hard work, what happened? Suddenly, that call comes. Your position has been eliminated. I'm sorry about this, but because of the COVID pandemic, blah, 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 as the person on the other line continues to speak and your mind shut off and ran down the road after the word eliminated, I guess I should say you get a call if you're lucky. Sometimes you only get a letter. Perhaps it's certified, but it gives you the same information. It talks about unemployment, COBRA, and a bunch of other stuff that you don't even care about right now. It feels horrible. Your world may even feel like it's caving in. Wait, as a doctor, as an executive, as a long-term employee, you thought you would never be fired. How did this happen? I recall my first experience with this. You know, not leaving your job on your own terms. Many of you have read about it in License to Live, a primer to rebuilding your life after your career is shattered. After working for a hospital system for over 12 years and moving up the ranks all the way to the board of trustees, I was living in my purpose and having a great time living my life. The last thing I thought would happen to me was losing my job. I spent years building the brand of the institution at the expense of letting my personal brand take the back seat. I spent years conducting research and building policy that made a difference in health equity and reducing health disparities, all the while taking care of thousands of families. Heck, I even had a big picture of me in the hospital hallway. You know, that hallway in the hospital that has a bunch of pictures of people who were once important to the institution from way back in the day to the present. Well, my picture is no longer in the hospital, but it does hang proudly on my wall in my office as a reminder to what once was, as I created my way to a better future. One day, as my letter carrier, Kelly, rang my doorbell. Kelly is always so pleasant, but I'm sure she knew that I was really going through something terrible as I was suddenly home to answer the door day after day while certified mail came to my house frequently. Anyway, as I signed for this letter, I took it inside. By this point, I had become numb to the pain of opening up certified mail. I mean, after all, it was coming from hospitals, medical boards, courts, and many more people. As I sat down on the couch, bracing to see what the next horrible turn in my life would be, it was addressed to me, and it started, Dr. Patton. By the letter dated, date redacted, you were advised, blah, 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 blah. Your employment is terminated, blah, 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 blah. Signed, 2 people I knew personally and thought, couldn't one of them give me a call and tell me this? Haven't I poured out a part of my soul for this institution? Didn't I deserve at least a call? I daydreamed. Hey, Jarret, this is a tough situation, and I hate that you have to go through this. You are a great asset to the institution, and we hate to let you go, but you understand. Something like that would have been okay. But no, a simple letter straight to business without even a salutation like dear or greetings at the beginning. Am I mad about this? No, not really. I mean, I've moved way beyond that letter and that part of my life. However, through my experience at the top levels of hospital leadership, I learned a lot about conducting business. I learned that business gets conducted no matter what is going on a personal level. It is business first. I have warned you in the other episodes of this 4-part series that it is business and not personal. After all, I knew the bylaws. I helped revise some of them. The safest thing for the organization to do was to send me a relatively generic letter and walk away. The point of this story is that even as a well-respected, highly productive physician or executive or VIP, your job can suddenly be gone in the blink of an eye. Your usefulness may be up. The organization may be going in a different direction. The COVID pandemic caused irreparable financial damage to the system. That viral social media post you posted, you name the excuse. Your time could be coming. I don't want to ring the alarm or bring panic to an already panicky and jittery situation. However, I do want you to prepare yourself and realize that you are expendable even if you think you are the linchpin of the company. I mean, after all, years and years of commercials. The Verizon guy, can you hear me now? He was let go at some point. However, he did resurface as that same guy, working for another cell phone company, doing the same thing. Worked out for him. That is what I want to get across to you. Take some time today to prepare yourself for tomorrow. There is no such thing as job security, especially in an uncertain environment. Sometimes you have a premonition that your time is coming. Other times it may hit you out of the blue. Take a few moments to brace yourself and prepare for the possibility by getting a few things in order. Number 1, know your worth. I had a brief episode on knowing your worth back in 2018. I'll put that episode in the show notes so you can listen to it. It's just a few minutes long, but what I said in that episode still holds true today. You are a pivotal physician, executive, or VIP in your current company. You have credentials and certifications that you have worked very hard for. Spend some time looking at everything you have done over your career and build it into a new CV. Highlight the things you do outside of the normal, stay in your lane, doc, stuff. Describe things that boosted your leadership experience. Look at things that make you stand out in a crowd. Perhaps it is in the realm of academic prowess and you look at the publications, book chapters you contributed to. Well, how about awards? Awards are important in your overall worth as well. Be sure to list any awards that you have won, whether big or small. They all count and they help you stand out. Most of all, believe in yourself. Knock off any insecure feelings or any dreaded imposter syndrome that so many people have been talking about. Stand tall because nobody will understand your true worth if you don't believe in yourself. Number 2, look at the potential event as an opportunity. If you do get fired, furloughed, or just plain quit, think of the opportunities that are in front of you. There could very well be something that you have suppressed for years to pursue your goals as a doctor, lawyer, president, athlete, fill in the blank. Even without a job, your future looks bright. Take inventory of all the things that you liked and you didn't like about your old job and create a new job. This will be your perfect job. And you can measure any other job against the perfect job. You may even consider this as a unique moment in time to go after something completely different, maybe outside of your industry. You know that I have featured many guests who have gone on to do other things like produce movies, rap music, or even help people who have suffered trauma after a malpractice suit. There are so many options out there. This is your time to do something truly meaningful and fulfilling. This is exactly the path that I set on after I received that letter from the hospital. I knew I didn't want to go right back into clinical medicine. In fact, I didn't even entertain going back to my old job when whispers of that started coming my way. I knew that I was valuable and I could help people in other ways, and I've never looked back. I love my coaching practice and the clients I have helped unleash a new part of themselves. Number 3, be positive. One of the biggest things you can do is remember this advice. It's business, not personal. Let's move on. Sure, you can hold grudges and be mad at people and blame everything under the sun as to why things went wrong. Why things went wrong isn't really important if you have taken the time to analyze a situation and you learn a lesson from it. Holding on to the negative feelings and negative energy around job loss does not do you or your psyche any good. In fact, that negative energy could be the exact thing holding you back from completing steps 1 and 2. You can't change the past, but you can shape your future by taking one step forward. If you have a particularly difficult time being positive, my new book, Licensed to Live, Daily Affirmations to Rebuild Your Life, may be something you need. This is a guided affirmation journal that will help you change your mind and attitude by channeling into the positive energy and abundance that surrounds you. As a frequent listener to this show, you can get access to this book before I release it to the general public in this pre-sale. You can get it before even Barnes & Noble has it. Simply go to licensedtolivesale.com. That's licensedtolivesale.com and enter the code podcast for your discounted price with free shipping directly from me. I will personally autograph each copy. But whatever it takes, be positive and stay positive. You will be amazed at how many opportunities come your way. Again, I don't want to cause panic or sound the alarms too early in this thing, but just because you're a boss, a stud, a superstar, that doesn't mean you can't lose your job. You heard how I lost mine, and I want you to be prepared. Take heed of the warning and use the 3 steps outlined in this episode to help prepare you, just in case.
So if you guys have been hanging with me through this marathon of an episode, thank you very much. And I hope it was helpful if you didn't catch it on the first time. But these are points that are remaining pervasive and persistent within our lives today as this pandemic lives on. And originally when these episodes came out, well, certainly was hoping more on the shorter end of the stick, that this would not be around for very long. But hey, it's here and it's going to be here for a while yet still. So we have to find ways to deal with it. So fire starters, hey, if you've ever been dissed, please tell a friend about this show, as we are coming in with new guests and new content all the time. And we have a number of great shows lined up for the remainder of this calendar year as well. But hey, if you ever need to reach out to me at any time, you want to talk to me directly, go to drjarret.com, set up an appointment, or even just go with time with drjarret.com, and we'll get a free strategy session. We'll try to get some things figured out so you too can be licensed to live. See you next time.
Licensed to Live. No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarret's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.